Nathan, can I make you co-host so that you can add people in if they come while I'm talking? If they join?
Yes, but I may have to leave early to pick up my son, so you might need a backup co-host.
Okay. Lawrence, are you going to be able to stay for the whole session?
I am.
Okay, let me go ahead and make you co-host. And just if you can monitor the attendees.
Okay.
So all I do is go over here and I say promote to panelist on everybody as they get in, and if they accept it, they show up as a panelist, but that also allows them to talk. So thanks for the reminder, Pearl. Yep, just started. So let me go ahead and do one of these and do that. That over here. Smaller. Thank you everybody for showing up. There's a big crowd tonight.
Hmm?
Getting bigger than bigger.
Yeah, we're coming back from COVID. It's been a bit. All right, so welcome. Thank you for coming out. There is still pizza left. Please grab pizza, cheese, and pepperoni. Let me know if you have ideas for better or cheaper food. I kind of phone it in with just getting what I can do quickly with one set of arms to carry bags and backup projectors. It's a little hard to start pulling all that stuff in my Prius. So that is not a cargo-friendly car. And my back is no longer a cargo-friendly back. But we're here every month, third Wednesday of every month, continuing a long tradition. Today, we're going to discuss, yes.
Somebody. The fourth Wednesday.
What's that?
The fourth Wednesday, not third.
Fourth Wednesday, thank you. Thank you. Fourth Wednesday of every month. See, it's like it's a community.
Unless it's Thanksgiving or some other holiday, sometimes they'll shift it. But
we usually try to do a holiday party in November, and then we take December off. You know, unless there's a tornado. So you see tornado sirens or something and nobody's here, sorry in advance. That has happened one time. This is Texas, which is almost as bad as Oklahoma was.
There was thunderstorm,
Yeah.
we went good.
There were a couple people that showed up here that were very angry about nobody being here. And I felt bad. They were really looking forward to the topic, but yeah, I got a call from Moyes, and he had the university bat phone and said it was closed. So anyway, glad you're here. Please come back. Today, we'll be talking about user experience. It's not going to be super Debbie. It is going to be mostly heuristics for development. So developers, and so it's really solution design and interaction design and some basic steps you can take to be a better developer and build better solutions. I hate doing work twice. And when I build something that somebody doesn't want to use and I don't find out until they try to use it and I have to rewrite it, that is boring for me. So I like to be really sure what I'm doing. I like to help them discover what they actually need. And I've studied that for quite a bit. And I constantly brag about being Nielsen Norman Master Certified. Nielsen Norman pretty much wrote the book on user experience and usability. And I studied with that for, gosh, took 3 years to kind of get enough of the certs to get the master certification. It was the easiest way to get the word master on my resume. So I didn't want to go get a master's degree. This was a little bit easier. So it's more of a resume SEO thing. Don't tell anybody that secret, at least not on LinkedIn. Moyes is not going to be here tonight. He said he was feeling a little under the weather. And yeah, we will talk a little bit of VS Code today. But if you want to get in touch with us, Moyez is, I'm sure most of you know who Moyez is. I don't need to introduce him. MVP Hall of Famer, has met Benioff. And me, I'm just recently an O'Reilly author, so I won't bore anybody with that today. I'm always looking for stack champions to help bring content and topics. If there's something that you would like to be able to inject into this group, take a topic and bring and have ideas, and even if it means mini sessions during the group or an entire presentation, if you think it'd be content valuable, right now it's me finding stuff that I'm interested in, and I bring that to the group. If you'd like to help with that, help learn, help get connected to people that are interested in those topics, ping me. If it benefits you guys, if it benefits the group, then it's good for everybody, and I'd love to have the help. Moyez is still running the nonprofit stand-up. Recently had a big one for that, for a repeat on It's Going to Be Okay, and help them build that out a couple weeks ago. Thanawala is taking that even further, and I think they're going to do multiples per year. We're going to try and make it, if they'll let me, I'm going to try and make it part of a CTA experience. So we'll see if we can get the CTA exam is a hardcore, you have to pass 10 sub-exams and then go to pay about, I think it's $12,000 to, and most of the time go to Seattle, I think, to sit in front of a panel of serious experts, and they tell you, and it's an ordeal. It's a big deal, and there's a decent community of people trying to get that, and I think it'd be a good tie-in. So we'll be talking about that. Machine learning and AI, Renee Bartel has been helping drive some of that content here. There's going to be a lot more of that going on, so can always use help with that. Nathan Schulman is our resident developer extraordinaire, handling LWC. And integrations, we still don't have anybody very strong for that. I bring what I can when I can, but it's not very often recently, since all of the glory is on GPT lately. In platform dev, would love to have an admin or dev, you know, that an expert at formulas. You want to do it? You volunteering? Okay. Yeah, so formulas to me are a type of code. You can do regex in a flow or in a formula, or that's code, and that's much more usable to non-developers when it's in flows or in field calculations. So I'd like for that to be there. We had Steve Mollis, who is kind of the heavyweight champion of formulas, present one time. I've got to see if we can come again, but he has a really interesting mindset for how he solves problems. And he's been able to do some stuff in a formula that I didn't think you could do in either flows or Apex. Have to check out that session. That session should still be on YouTube. I'm going to sit and keep bringing flow stuff in because I'm still a little crazy about flows. But that's also always a good place to bring some more content, especially with reactive components coming up and those kind of things. It'll be interesting to see where OmniScript. So Omni Studio is part of the core platform now. It's supposed to be just as free as flows are. So there's two flow technologies on the core platform that are running kind of side by side. They said they merged the groups for a little bit, and then they've split them apart again with slightly different focus. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. And then we haven't heard from Waqas Nasir in a while. He runs Digisec, which is a code security plugin tools and code analysis, vulnerability analysis for Salesforce code. And he usually comes and gives us a security minute, but I think his company's busy being acquired. So once he gets done off of his beaches, maybe he'll come back. But I think he's going to be hopefully a rich man very soon, and probably busy doing that. So anyway, interested in that. I do not have a fun QR code for Twitter, but please tweet. If you do that, that's where a lot of Salesforce information gets expressed and shared. So if you want to stay up on the latest news, following a handful of people on Twitter is a good way to keep up with that. LinkedIn is actually becoming a little bit more of a healthy communication channel for Salesforce. I think there's a a little bit of a breakup going on with Twitter and Salesforce with some of the things that recently happened. Amkar, did you see any? Did you find any news on that? There's no update? Okay, yeah, Twitter apparently shut down a lot of the API connections that Salesforce was using, and there was just an announcement of this is going away, and that was it. It was an ice cold announcement. So haven't heard any other updates on that. That is probably still just a negotiation, but we shall see. Jade is my buddy. Have you connected with Jade? She is the big military booster. She is a rock star in promoting military career advancement with Salesforce. She's out of Boston as well, but great person. All right, new and newsworthy. Biggest, I say now I'm listening to it a lot. My friends and I are putting on a conference. It has traditionally been a SharePoint and Microsoft conference, but I have injected Salesforce into it now. So it is going to be, and my wife has nicknamed it, We Dreaming, Little Dreaming, Dreamin'. It'll be in Irving, April of next year. Call for speakers is out. Moyez has already tentatively agreed to speak at it. We've got a handful of other people there, but if you're interested, there's the website. Would love to have you come, but I'm not going to do a big press on that. But we're hoping that it's something fun like Texas Dreamin', but it will not be exclusively Salesforce. We are going to try and make it multi-cloud. We're going to hopefully teach a session on how to make flows talk to Teams. And I'm going to try and get somebody to get Slack to talk to AWS. And we may have just little course sessions like that, but how Salesforce works talking to other platforms. Nobody has only Salesforce. Everybody is always in multiples. And so if you're working in Salesforce, your solutions almost always involve one of the other major cloud providers. So this will have hopefully a good mix of multi-cloud technology and multi-cloud architects. Catching up on panelists here. Today, and it's apparently on the last Wednesday of every month, which coincides kind of with our group, there's apparently a developer AMA that's going to happen monthly from now on. I got to sit in on it today, and it had a lot of great news. Reached out to them and asked if it was okay if I still screen grab. So there's my permission to share the screen grab. So that's going to be our news today. collabsummit.org. I should put once we get, we're still working on the marketing material, so that should come up soon. And I'm a little bit behind on the, yeah, it's the North American Cloud and Collaboration Summit. It used to be the North American Collaboration Summit, and that was specifically a SharePoint conference. But they're letting me add in Salesforce, so it'll be a mini Dreamin'. Lightning Web Components. So they were bragging in this developer AMA, bragging about majority of their customers are using LWC. Don't have a ton of news there. I need to get to where I can see my notes. Hold, please. Sorry, we're going to go out of presentation mode for a minute. I think that was our news from last time. This is what they had listed for developers as the most requested components. When all the developers responded to this survey, this is what they voted that they wanted to see the most of. That's PDF export, Lightning out, dynamic components, workspace API, Lightning actions, dependency injection, and list view buttons. PDF is funny. How many people still use Visual Force to do PDF out? Yeah. trying to get away from it. And one of the most commonly used features is still Visualforce only. This is their roadmap. Nathan, do you know what the light DOM is? I know what the shadow DOM is, but I don't know what the light DOM is.
I don't want to say because I don't know for sure, but might be related to Lightning Web Security and not having to manage a copy of the DOM.
Oh, okay.
Maybe using references. Is there anything specific about references? That's actually pretty nice. Like being able to access the DOM directly with .ref. Don't know if it's related. So those are my best guesses, but I don't know.
So this and the true to the core, I love getting in on these and finding out what the engineers say are their roadmap, not the salespeople. Salespeople say everything's on the roadmap. The engineers talk about stuff that's actually being tracked. If you want to study something and get in ahead and be one of the first people that's an expert in one of these technologies, watch the stuff that's about to be new. Especially if you're looking for a job. But being the only person who knows what hot new technology that just came out is a big deal. Let's see, URL addressable. I'm trying to think if there's any that I'm native shadow components. Don't know anything about that. Yeah, this is all Greek to me, except for SLDS new colors. Hopefully those dynamic components will be something interesting. But anyway, this is, again, another good reason to come to this, to find this AMA and get on the regular listening to it. So Code Builder, I said we're going to talk about VS Code. Most of this presentation, or about half of the presentation, was talking about Code Builder. This is the web-based version of VS Code. It has been in the works, I think, for about 2 years. And now it is going to be GA next month. They said it does not, I asked a handful of questions about it, so it's a web instance of VS Code. How long does it last? If I go code up there, can I talk to my local repository? How do I get plugins put into VS Code if it's a web VS Code? Their answer to all of this, which I'm having trouble believing, was yes. All of the stuff that you use VS Code that normally you can't do on a web instance of anything, they have figured out. So whenever I have a feeling it's going to be part of license, it doesn't sound limited enough to be something that you can use at Trailhead. Because if you had 800 pieces of code open, you were looking at 80 megabytes of source code in different projects, and you shut that browser down, the server still has to keep that memory somewhere. So that storage, somebody is paying for. If it has that kind of capability, I'm going to guess it's going to be a licensed feature. There may be a limit. There may be, hey, 1 meg per user for Trailhead. You just can't keep that many files open, stuff like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little give and take based on whether you're doing it as a licensed account or as a free account. But this is exciting. I can't tell you how many times I've almost quit projects because the client laptop wouldn't install the JRE that I needed that would work with the plugin that they had blocked. So yeah, if I never see a Java path problem again, it'll be too soon.
And that was a big, big topic at Dreamforce a couple of weeks ago as well. Was how this VS Code for admin. They taught us how to do that, but they said everything will be available in this Salesforce Code Builder in a web-based soon.
Okay. Yeah, that should be neat. I'm a hardcore advocate of the dev console. You still can't make me learn VS Code unless I'm doing LWC. Apex is just too easy. Visualforce, everything I can do it in dev console, and I've done it on my phone. I hook my phone up to a big monitor and web browse to dev console. So this becomes my work laptop. I don't have to carry a big heavy duty thing with a lot of storage. I log into Salesforce and this has enough compute power to run dev console and query and export files. So it doesn't make sense to have a big heavyweight, and don't get me started on Eclipse.
That's
So
not till
they
this
are-
year.
They're excited about this. I have some links here. Let me drop these links in the chat. They're starting a community up on that. You can get in, talk to people there. Did I miss any other links from one of the other pages? And then the other big news was Scale Center. Anybody heard of Scale Center yet? This is the first time I've heard of it. Okay. What's your take on Scale Center?
Recordings and
Getting the microphone closer.
yeah, so we have it in our org as well. So it gives us the performance metrics of how many apex, timeout, CPU, everything it gives, and it has like a high level, and when you go in detail level, they run a job and they provide in detail, but they cannot do it. Like you cannot do minute level once, like twice in a day. You can do it because they have to run jobs to pull
Okay.
that information. So yeah, for developers, it is very good to understand what are the peak times their Apex jobs are running at particular time, what is causing locking issues, that also it shows. So it has a lot of capabilities.
Yeah, performance, locks, errors.
Update jobs.
But yeah, it's basically, it's like DevOps Center is a place to come do DevOps. This is a new place to look at performance metrics. It's kind of a performance metrics dashboard. I think it's admin only, right? It should be. Okay. So this looked really exciting. What's that? Okay.
Apex class, it will show you what.
Yeah, so it is like at last day, how many Apex jobs run the whole day, you can get a graph of it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then you can drill down to a 1 hour range of first. If you see that, right, it shows you the whole day, how many jobs and throughput and CPU time or everything. It will show you snapshot, and then you can drill down to a particular hour where it is more the locking issues, everything it will show, and then it's like a ID where you can go drill down the trace.
Yeah, it's like it's a performance reporting tool.
And we have to pay for it.
No, it's being built into Salesforce. Yeah, part of the core platform, as far as I can tell. It's like Security Center and the other hubs. So scalability and performance now have a place where you can go dig in. And this is one of the ones that I called out, asking about that in summer 24, Scale Center GPT will be available. So they're wanting to have the abilities that you can go in there and ask a performance chatbot questions, and the AI will try and tell you what you're trying to find. Hey, why is this page running slow? And it can go look at all the different components of the page and try and say, yeah, it looks like it's these queries, or it looks like this image is taking a long time to load. You might consider doing a different format for your images, or your JavaScript you may want to pre-cache that. It's supposed to have some insight and bring that up so that you don't have to be a developer to understand performance, and you can start asking those questions. You don't just say, page broken. The GPT from Scale Center can tell you what may be contributing to the problem. Hey, this page is slow only during 3 and 4 p.m. during the day because there's some other jobs running. So I think it's interesting to see that a GPT-enabled brand new feature is already on the roadmap. And so that should be a fun thing. Apex Guru, I could not get them to tell me what that was. I asked, I heard a mention of it. This sounds interesting. Nathan, do you have any non-NDA stuff that you know about Apex Guru?
No.
Okay, I feel like this is a
But weren't they saying
GPT-enabled.
Copilot? Weren't
What's
they saying
that?
Copilot? Except there's a thing called Copilot that's like generic AI predictions of code that you want to write. And I feel like things were being called Copilot in Dreamforce, and maybe it has to be called Guru now?
Okay, yeah, that was kind of the
wouldn't be
feel I
bad.
got from the 2 sentences they had on it, but I think
Yeah.
that'll be interesting for developers. I really don't want to write test classes anymore. I want an artificial intelligence to do test classes for me.
I can't wait to find out if that defeats the purpose.
Probably will.
Okay?
I just wanted to do most of it. But if you see the picture here, these people were, so they've got a scale blazer. I think that's funny. I was hoping Lawrence had gotten a hoodie for that. But these people had a lot of information, and it was great connecting with them on this call. So Mohit is a developer advocate, like a friend of the group, Stefan Chandler Garcia, and Daniel Larragee, who's based here in Dallas. So I didn't know any of the other names, but they were great to talk to. And you can see if you want to know more about Scaleblazer, they've got this short URL there. And then they mentioned on there, sorry, did you get done taking your picture, Najitha? Good? Okay. Einstein GPT for developers. They did an AMA on this that I missed, and I didn't get a chance to go watch it before today so that I could give some updates on it. But I do have the QR code. Anybody can go watch that and see. I'm interested to see what they will be bringing to us. I don't know if that's Apex Guru or Code Pilot or what the branding is. The name will probably change 17 times in the next 6 months, but what's that? Einstein GPT for develop. Yeah, but I don't know which Einstein GPT this is for developers. Do you think it's just
No, it's called Einstein. I installed it.
okay? Do you know what it does?
Yeah, so in the Salesforce org, we have to enable, it's in the setup, Einstein for developers. Once you enable, in the VS Code, you have to have an extension. So once you add that extension and connect to the org, it will come a side rail, left side, where you can ask, I need to write a trigger or an account.
Oh, okay.
And it gives the trigger your code, you can copy that, and then as you mentioned for the test class also, you can write it and paste it in your.
Huh. Okay. Did everybody on the call hear that?
Yeah, they have one. Yeah. So
Yes.
Okay.
no, not required. You can use the VS Code extension and use it.
Don't know why you would need both, but it'd be interesting to see what data.
Yeah, our country, they won't allow ChatGPT to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they'll restrict those. So this is
Gotcha.
better.
Okay. That's a good point. Cool. Hopefully everybody on the, and it's Anil. Okay. It's going to be the same technology, the same generative AI engine, but it'll probably be very different on what data it's modeling off of, whether it's using the whole internet, which is sketchy sources, versus hand-picked sources for Einstein GPT. I don't know what the process would that be. So with the internet being sketchy, you and I are also sketchy. So I don't know how they would go through and approve some code sources and some not code sources. They may be building their own model internally where it's that day. I don't know how they would cherry pick the data because there's a lot of concerns about copyright infringement. And or how you could poison search results and insert phone home so that when I just use copy paste chat GPT, it sends my information to foreignhacker.com because I didn't look at it closely enough and I didn't see what it was doing and I just copied and pasted. So that's the big threat that will be behind the scenes as they try and get these AI models to do more work for us. It's just like typing something into Google and just blindly copying, pasting it in there. So it's not much different in, the genie out of the bottle for Google and Stack Exchange. Same thing. It's just we're getting more comfortable with letting the computer do our work for us. Copy and pasting, you at least have to adjust it a little bit. If the AI models can format it to where it slides right into your code, what happens when you're using somebody else's copyrighted code? I don't think code should be copyrighted, but that's a different story. Yeah, they'll have to figure that out. That's all the AI ethics that they're trying to figure out right now. But unfortunately, everybody's selling stuff as fast as they can and then figuring out how to do it the right way after. Close the deal, figure out if it's the right thing to do later. Moyez is not here tonight, so there won't be any Moyez minute. We will just hop into the presentation. And this is me talking about UX strategies for developers that I kind of throw at different projects. So, oh, we couldn't hear. Oh, thanks, Pearl. I'm sorry. So Einstein GPT sounds like it is a plugin for VS Code that will help you write code. I don't know if that is going to be the same as Apex Guru or Copilot, but Anil has worked with it a little bit. So sorry, just doing a relay of what Anil helped us out with. Oh, I need to switch to this. I did actually go through the trouble of putting some animation in here, so. So how many people have worked with personas? Know what a persona is? Have you talked about personas when you're designing applications? I hate personas. I hate personas, and this is kind of a fun thing. Nielsen Norman, the first session I went to, it blew me away. I was just getting into agile development, and I love the agile mindset. Fail early, fail often, learn from your mistakes. And they framed it as agile is development in the absence of a solid plan. If you don't have a vision, you throw agile. If you've got developers that need stuff to do, you just start going through agile steps. You go through iterations, you build a backlog. Waterfall means I have a perfect vision of the future. I know what I'm trying to get to, and I work until I get there. I don't necessarily iterate through it. It's really hard to do user experience design in agile projects because the goal with agile is constantly shifting, and you end up with a different product at the end if you're doing data-based design. You figure out what users like, you adjust what the next things and the priorities are. So agile a lot of times can run away from you and can be really bad for application design if you don't have people driving the front end, like a really strong stakeholder with a really good vision of what the end will be. Agile is just developers doing development in a circle, and you just keep cycling through it. You shouldn't have like a long backlog and you're just trying to get through it. You should build the core, figure out what people like from it, and then decide what to do next. You add new features based on the feedback of what you see. Just churning through a list is an extended version of waterfall if you're not adapting and using adaptive. So agile can be terrible for user design and user experience, because you can end up with this Franken product where you initially thought the UX, the interface, the navigation would be one thing, but as you developed, it can drift away from that. And you can have 3 sub-applications where you only had one navigation, and you can have different teams bringing things together and not working for a single unified vision. So agile is terrible for user experience if you don't do it with a lot of user experience in the project. Most of the projects I've been on, they come in and do UX design, and the UX designers leave, and then they agile everything. And most of the time, it turns out not great. Usually the original UX design and wireframes are not kept to because things happen, or this one's hard, or we couldn't connect to that system. Well, half of the navigation, half of the UI, half the reason the person was using the tool in the first place changed. So the user experience needs to change along with it. Personas are similar to that, and I hate personas because it tries to put a person. They stopped doing demographics, fortunately. Demographics were the old personas. The user is male, he's 25 years old and has a high school education. That's who our user is. So they would design to that demographic. Well, people in that demographic do not use the internet exactly the same way. Personas were better. They tried to shape it towards a specific type of user, not tied just to their demographic. You wouldn't expect that I spend my weekends in an RV playing Diablo as a 50-year-old gray-bearded guy. I don't fit my demographics. I also don't fit my persona every time I use an application. If you're designing a corporate persona, this is our average corporate user. So do I build the web interface for this average corporate user? To me, that guy is terrifying. The faceless individual, and if you design an application for a persona, this is kind of what you end up with. It's too much of a vague single description for a user. You can't reuse personas across multiple applications. There's Libby, who I met at the user group. I swear she coined this term, moments. Instead of personas, design for a moment. The user is trying to do what? At what time of the day, at what part of their life, at what part of their job, and how are they feeling about it? Is this something they're doing because something is broken? We need to make the interface different if they're panicked. We need to make the interface different if they're calm. We need to make the interface different as this is something that they don't use every day versus, hey, I'm in this every day. You can make something noisy and really rich. If it's something I don't understand, you would design it for me different. So you need to observe the moment that the user is in when you're approaching. Hey, what is the user trying to do? That is a different type of user than the persona. I'm in a good mood and I'm doing something that's casual that I do every day. And when I go to this other application, I'm in a hurry, something's broken, I'm responding to a bug, I'm responding to a case or an angry customer. I need an entirely different experience than I'm in an entirely different moment, even though I'm the same persona from application to application. So again, that persona looks terrifying to me. That's what I see every time I put one of these little meeples on the thing, and I don't think something like this. So we have in Salesforce, we have the waffle, which is where a lot of interactions start. Or we might have gotten an email, and the email says, go do this immediately in Salesforce. That pathway and understanding how your users are getting to the application, first step of developing a useful moment infrastructure. Get in the path of what would they be doing right before they came to your application? What kind of mood are they in? Have they been logged into your app for hours and they got a notification? Or have they never seen your app before and you're asking them to sign up for compliance training? If you're coming at it from those different perspectives, then you can design your app to what kind of mindset your user has, not 25 years old, band level 2 in your company, who likes trees and has 4 kids. Those don't help you with what their motivation is when you're doing it. So this right here tells me almost nothing about what's going on. This, somebody's late for a bus, somebody's late for a train. That's a moment. I can design an application for that moment that suits that purpose really well, whereas this doesn't really tell me any motivation about the user. So that's another agile problem that I see is we don't have enough user interaction. We may have a long backlog, but we don't have the context around the stories where we can drill back up in why is this user in this situation? Could we build an application ahead of where they're having the problem, or are we just photographing the train wreck? So analyzing that whole thing and making changes upstream from your issue can also shorten development time, fix other processes as opposed to try and fix it in one place. Yeah.
What are the situations, what are the moments they typically go through, even day in life?
Yeah, you can start with personas. The persona exercise, where we all go into a room and we put Post-it notes on cutout pictures, can be a really good exercise. You just don't stop there. You don't leave them all on that one persona. You want to group them into, what are their influences? What are their external surroundings? What makes us the same when we order Domino's? And then what might be different when we order Domino's? If we're feeding hungry children, or if we're, feeding a conference room, we might have different motivations. But if we're mostly the same, we're not panicked, we're not, then we might, even if we have two personas, you and I are different ages, we're still the same moment. We may be different personas, we may have different demographics, but it should still be one moment. And it's good to isolate those motivating factors. And that is a better way to attack solving a problem than just this person with this hair color and has this education and speaks this language. Those things don't tell you why I'm using the tool. That is why I'm using the tool. This is a rough description of me. Does that help? Is that?
So the persona here is the salesperson. And if you go deeper, a moment would be he or she interacted with the customer and got a good vibe and wants to sign up that customer. So if you're thinking about his mindset at that time, he's pretty happy about it.
So let me give you an example. I rode along with one of the salespeople from Salesforce. We went to lunch. When he got done talking to me and talking to my company, he had an exciting, he had good feedback. He got a good nibble, good vibe. Where is he? He's with me, the client, in his car, driving to a restaurant, and he's got notes that he needs to get into Salesforce. If I design a big widescreen application for him to enter his notes, does that help him at all? No. That's when voice to chat was coming out. Now, if he pulled up the mobile app and hit voice to chat and was able to speak his notes into it, that's an application he can use at that moment. That his moment is, I'm in my car, I'm leaving the client site, I don't have a laptop. That's the moment you want to design for, or at least a collection, or be aware that those moments occur. And he might have notes when he gets home, or he might have a flight before he gets notes and doesn't have internet on the plane. So he's got 10 hours. What do we do in that moment with looking at those scenarios when he has that stuff in there? So that's kind of a moment analysis. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So this knowing the moment is knowing the journey. So there's a big journey mapping is a user experience thing that usually happens before you start doing an application. You want to know, journey mapping is, I'm a customer, AT&T is the company I work with, I have for the internet, I know some people from work that are AT&T. All of those different touch points are part of AT&T's user experience for me. Or Domino's Pizza, or Salesforce. And if I call Salesforce on the phone and somebody is rude to me and hangs up on me, it doesn't matter how many billboard posters I saw in the airport. My experience, because of that part of my journey, is bad. And if you don't track all of those journey points where your brand is part of the user's experience, you could be missing out on, hey, everybody, we spent all these big commercials, we gave away a lot of hoodies, but if customer support when I actually need it is really terrible, my overall user experience is terrible. Where am I consuming media? When am I dealing with your brand? When am I dealing with this website? Salesforce for salespeople, that's kind of that's old hat. Salesforce is really good as a CRM. More and more people are being brought into Salesforce because of its flexibility that don't always use it, that aren't in a sales, and don't use it all the time, and use it for corporate intranet functions where they don't ever work in it. Maybe they only work in ServiceNow and they get called to Salesforce for this one activity. If the UI and experience of Salesforce is completely different than what they're used to, that overall journey sucks for them. If they're there for 10 minutes out of 900 hours that they're not in it, that interface needs to be super easy for them. So what started their journey? Are they using pencil and paper? Are they mostly an Excel spreadsheet user? What forms are they used to filling out? What websites do they normally go to? The answer to how should a website look is however is easiest for the user to consume. About 10 years ago, I worked for a company that was not really a technology company. Most of the users only knew about the internet from the corporate intranet. When we tried to make stuff look like Google, like everybody was used to, everybody screamed because the only internet they used was the corporate intranet. They weren't late night web hackers, gamers, anything like that. They were not computer people. It would have been better. We could have made a great experience for people, but it was terrible for them because that's not what they were used to. And we had to slow play that and train that. But whatever the users are used to, that's the right design. Whatever everybody is used to, you want to build around that. So you want to understand when they're using it, how they're using it, and what tools they're comfortable using, and match that model. So that's knowing their journey. And I think I've already skipped. Yep. So yeah, this is my example of what should a form look like. If this is our persona and this is our generic business, imagine what a form would look like here, of something of information we need to get from somebody, as opposed to when I make this change. Does that change, that building, that context, make you want to do something different for the users? Again, that's part of the journey, knowing where you're at. And I have even there, even more so. I had a fun story. I want to see if I've got this quoted here. I spent a couple weeks working on an application at 7-Eleven, very hands-on client, wanted to tell me how to build the form start to finish. They had a long, long form. They wanted, okay, make sure that they can't enter anything but this, and make sure if they type this, that they see an error message that keeps them from doing that. And then go out and fill this, but only if they're this. And they have to do that, and then this form will go to, and they got through this whole thing. And I spent weeks building this form with them, with my team, and got all the way through it. And I'm like, okay, we need to put this on the internet, right? Yeah, put it on this page. And then they told me what the title of it was. This is long, lots of validation, lots of stuff you can't put in, multiple steps. It was the form for when you have just been robbed at gunpoint. Just been robbed at gunpoint, and they've got validation, capitalization rules, fill out your whole address, fill out the state, and you've just had a gun in your face. That form was not right for the moment. No better example of bad moment. I threw it all out the window. I went and talked to the franchise managers and said, I agree with where you want to put this, but I disagree with everything else. There should be a button that says I was just robbed. Somebody should call you on the phone and talk you through that. You shouldn't be filling out a web form. You shouldn't have to type in a bunch of things, and you, for God's sake, shouldn't get a validation error when you type something in wrong. So that is matching a moment. Another moment, and this is another 7-Eleven story. We spent, before that point, spent a lot of time building franchise consultants, which were mostly sales people. They were basically selling process and coaching people inside the store. They had us build a whole bunch of cool web applications for these people so that while they were talking to these franchisees, they could explain more stuff, download more things, give them more reports. And do you see a place to put a laptop in a 7-Eleven store anywhere? No. Wait, nothing we built for them worked. They had no place to use it. We ended up designing a bunch of pre-printed out forms. Hey, I'm going to go visit the store. I've got some paper in my hand. I can check my list off. We had so many claims of laptops left on shelves and stolen from the Cheetos aisle. It was crazy. There was just no good reason to try and make somebody carry a laptop. Mobile devices, when we got to mobile apps, it worked a little better, but I spent a long time working with some very smart people trying to design for an application that could never be used because we didn't think about the entire journey of the customer. So are they used to being printed out? Are they used to living just in email? Or are they entirely mobile-based? That you need to understand. If you design a big application that depends on this and you're sending it to here, your application is garbage. It won't be used, it'll be rejected, and you'll have wished you asked the simple question, are they going to be able to use it this way? Other big thing that I have not been great at doing that I wished I had done, and I keep trying to do as I build applications. So who here works for free? Anybody just donate their time for no reason? Okay, so if you're getting paid to do something, what you're getting paid to do is important enough for somebody to probably make money off of. If your application is thrown away, that's probably not a good use of money. If your application is sent to some really shy, nice people that don't tell you to throw your application away and that you wasted their time, you could still be building a stupid application unless you build something in to track the process. When you're building an application, think about logging success steps out. If you're building an application that nobody cares about reporting, whether it's successful or not, take a quiet vacation at your desk. Don't build anything. Build some screens that don't work because it doesn't matter. If what you're doing matters, you should be logging the success at each step, saying, hey, people are starting the process. They're getting to 8 million queries on a page, so it takes 15 minutes to load it. They never go to step 3 and step 4 and step 5. That should be, reporting should be first on your list. Build the front page, start reporting who lands on the front page. Build the next page, review the reporting that lands on the page. That is the biggest UX step that gets missed in projects that I've seen, and it's hard. I know this is my favorite thing to do. I still have trouble working it in. Logging when you're getting close to governor limits. Logging whenever you don't get all the way through this step and putting a report out there. Whoever's designing the application, if they're not physically watching people use it, they should care about this. And if there's nobody to give oversight to your project to say whether it's successful or not, what is the value of that project? If they don't care if it's successful, another story, I had somebody wanting me to rebuild an employee handbook application. And I kept asking why. What's the business use for this? No, companies have to have an employee handbook sign-off application. It's just how things are done. Well, okay, but usually it has to do with fines or compliance, or it's in a SOX policy, or our shareholders want that. Nobody does these things for free. There's nothing that you have to do in a business besides human rights violations that you have to do as part of web application. What you pay taxes, the end. No, you have to do it. Oh, we have to do this. Really? Because I just checked and our current system has been offline for 6 months. The one you're having me replace hasn't worked for 6 months and nobody noticed. Nobody said anything. So could you please redefine have to? If nobody's watching it, I have trouble believing there's any value in it. So usually first step, log where your value proposition is, and that will tell you if you're doing the right thing. If this is broken, you may not know because people quit and stop using it unless you have the metrics to back that up. And then that's what you put in your agile flow of people aren't going to step 3. We need to make step 2 easier. That should get prioritized in your backlog because if you don't get completed, you've got a crappy application. Yeah, and this quote is from me. There's no process worth being built that shouldn't be built without oversight. Nobody's watching to make sure that it's successful. What's the point? It has to generate some sort of valuable outcome. And that metrics of generation gets lost in a lot of projects. We built an app, we put it on the internet, we forgot about it, we moved on. Hate that. That is such a waste of time most of the time. May be really important, may not, you have no idea. When you come to, when you have to do updates on it, should we? Should we spend money updating this application or is it running fine? Or is nobody using it at all? Should we just turn it off? Everything has a cost. If you work in Salesforce, everything has a cost. If we have user licenses for people to use a site that they're not using, we should rethink that plan. Again, this isn't stuff you actually get to use very often as an application developer, but asking these questions can fix a lot of things. And I actually almost got myself fired. Another story, we were building an application to let users come in and pay their bill and see their billing and get discounts. Built a community website for this. The users could get discounts. That was their, well, anyway, we built the site with all these functions. We had a bunch of technical difficulties where we weren't able to enable all of the functions we had on our roadmap. And when we got to one of the features that we said, okay, we can't do this because we can't integrate to this discount system. And we just were we were doing agile. We had our backlog, we were going to keep going. And this feature we wouldn't be able to connect to this data source for 2 years. It just wouldn't be possible. Ask the question, well, isn't that feature the only reason that users are coming to this website? We want them to come to the website and give us extra information about them because we can use that. But they no longer had a motivation to come to the website after we dropped that feature. I asked that question. We had another year's worth of development we were going to do, and they canceled the project right then. And we asked good questions, so they put us on a different project, but it stopped the project and it saved the company a ton of money that they would thrown at this for something they wouldn't be able to use and they wouldn't be able to convince people to come in and use ever. I mean, if you build, hey, look at my x-rays, we build a website and you don't have the x-rays on it, if you build a food website and you can't order food, that's a big deal. Nobody's going to use that app. So tracking that overall value, and this is the thing that drives me crazy and is one of the measures for good applications. If I have to remember another stinking password to another website, it better be for a good reason. You have to at least make me want to use your website enough to remember yet another password, yet another account, forgot password, reset password, deal with all that garbage. That's how important that website needs to be. You've got to cross that threshold for any application. If it's just, come here and maybe you'll get something, maybe you won't get users and your website won't be used and your app will be thrown away. So their title is Site Less is More. When you're building applications, make sure that you build just enough interaction to suit the user's need in the moment. Not too many buttons, not too much information. If they live in that application, you can put more stuff on their screen and you can make it a dashboard. It can be a gateway to multiple applications. But as they drive into function, make it easier for them to hone in on the next call to action. CTA is what we call that. That's a user experience name. The button you're supposed to press is the call to action. What you want people to do next, what you're trying to guide them to do, those need to stand out really clearly so they can go straight there and they're not looking at the screen, looking at the waffle, looking at 800 open tabs. Make the interface as minimal as possible. Make it as complicated as it has to be, but no more. Always design that minimal interface and ask yourself, does every user need this extra button? Every extra button distracts people, causes cognitive friction. I pause, I read that extra stuff, and it slows me down from getting done what I need to get done. The faster I can do it, the more clicks, the quicker I can get through clicks, the easier it'll be. I think that's the reason that this has done so well. The screen's small. If the screen's small, you can't fit a bunch of garbage on it. So all of the applications built for the phone have to be simple. And I see 2 buttons on there and I hit next. There's a reason we didn't just cram big web pages onto a tiny screen and make you zoom in and out. We went with easier applications. So design with that less is more and keep less stuff on the screen. So user research, you asked about watching and observing and building that moment. So one of the things you can do, and this is my mini user research, as a developer, I may only have access to 1 or 2 people, or I may not even have access to the customer. It's usually about 3 hops in big companies before a developer can go to somebody who knows somebody that is actually allowed to talk to a customer, a sample customer. When I make my website, I try to send it to somebody who doesn't know anything about the website. And I want to get their raw experience. And if I can watch them do it remotely, even better. And you have to keep a certain number of friends loose. I try not to look at the websites that my teams are developing, except when they're demoing it to me. I don't want to be intimately familiar with it. I want to have that kind of new experience and figure out if something confuses me or if it's really easy to understand. So when I ask somebody to go to this link, I want them to see the page and see if they can intuit what they're supposed to do just by looking at the page. Should be a minimal amount of text and a couple of buttons to what to do next. If you can infer a site's function, even when you didn't know what that function was, that's a good website. That's a good application. So keeping friends and ask them, what do you think? And hopefully they'll tell you, don't tell them to fill it out. What do you think of this website? Oh, is this a new thing to check out a book? Yes, it is. That's a good visual interpretation of what's going on. It's exactly what I intended that to be. And if that clicks with somebody fast, you've done a good job of designing the interface. If they don't know what it is, or they think it's something for making pancake batter, you probably need to go back and redesign. Change your keywords, get some bigger headers. Can you do the X task as fast as you can? Watch somebody try and click through it and see where their mouse is hunting to find what they think to do next. If they're hovering over someplace where they think a button should go because every other website, every other page that they've clicked has the, some companies put the next button over here on a form and some put it over here. The right answer of where a button should go is wherever the user expects it to be. Doesn't matter that this is the right place for most applications. If everybody on your internet is used to the button being over here, put it over here. If they start to change that, move and design it with them. But where they want it to be, if they're clicking around and they can't find your tiny little pie symbol that they're supposed to click on to go to the next page, that's an observation. And you stress them by asking them to do it as fast as they can. That adds a little bit less, it has to be more intuitive. They can't think about it. A smart person can figure anything out. You put me in front of a website, it's not in a language I speak. I can eventually hover over enough things and I can figure out what I'm supposed to do. You ask me to do it fast, I will freak out and run away and make an excuse. If you get somebody to do that and they start talking and jabbering, you know you don't have something that they can embrace quickly and move through their application. Can you go to my function? This is another one. Wherever you're housing your function, if you're building the only thing on the internet for people, and they're going to go to www mycompany.com and they land on your platform, your job's easy. They open a web browser, that's the home page. That's how they get to it. Most of the time, I'm building little things on sub navigations because it's already built. There's nobody that's building their very first intranet anymore. You're designing application in a sea of applications. Having somebody start from scratch and say, go to this function. This is what I'm trying to get you to do. I'm trying to get you to make pancake batter. It better be obvious for everybody in your company where they would go to find the pancake batter application. If they can't find it, it doesn't matter if you make a good application. You need to figure out how to get your link on the tab on the intranet that they expect it to be on. Again, good application that people have a bookmark to, it's never the scenario. It's always got to be part of a navigation. Your function might be part of a, if I'm working in Service Cloud and I'm building a new emergency case, I want people to be able to find the emergency button when they're having an emergency. And it needs to be where they expect it. If it's not where they expect it, they can't find it, your tool doesn't get used. And if there's ambiguous ones, if there's a batter application, but it's not the pancake batter application, merge that function in. Now, these are assuming different applications, but this kind of logic applies to menuing systems. Hey, is this menu supposed to be next to that menu? Is this dropdown related more to that? Are these two fields related? Put them next to each other. Figure out where things go and align them so that they're intuitive to the user. You lose perspective when you're doing dev and you're trying to get error messages to stop. And when somebody just says, add a new thing and you put it next on the list, you put it next on the page and it doesn't make sense for the user, you've missed. So always keep a handful of people that you can ask to think and look at stuff that don't know your application back and forth and haven't seen every single thing built on it. That will help the dev.
Paul, this is Lawrence. One of my biggest pet peeves lately are these apps that have a disabled looking button. They're grayed out, look like they're supposed to be disabled. Historically, if you click on a grayed out button, it means it's disabled and nothing's going to happen. But now that is the primary look and feel of some new buttons, and I hate it.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot too. One of the couple of times that I almost lost my job at 7-Eleven, I was working with an app development team that they were building a ticketing system. And in the menu, they wanted you to be able to reopen a case, close a case, or cancel a case. And so they had on each line, they had reopen, close, cancel. Like you can't call it cancel. Why not? They're canceling a case. The cancel button is already used on everything in the internet already. Cancel means abandon transaction. It doesn't mean do something to a case. That button has a function already, and it needs to match what that button always does everywhere else. That was my big pet peeve. Thanks, Pearl. Sorry about that. I'll try and make sure I do that. Sorry, I get in the mix of talking and I go too fast. So some basic user experience stuff. Now, my PowerPoint slides kind of suck, but you can see I always go big, indented smaller, indented even smaller. This follows a standard Gestalt heuristic of indentation and completion. There is a structure that you can see there. Now, most of you will notice that this is indented, but the bullets didn't indent. That's because I've been reusing this PowerPoint template for so long that it's broken. But this, you can still see that this is sub-indented. Our eyes gravitate to that. And people use an F-shaped heat pattern scanning. They will start at the top left and they will read left to right until they see something in the bigger text. Their eyes will start to float over all the big text until they see something they think they're looking for, and then they will read deeper. It's a very standard reading pattern. If you're presenting people with a lot of information, follow this pattern to group things. In Salesforce and flows and page layouts, we have accordions, we have different stuff that lets us segment things. But a lot of times people forget that that's intentional and that our brains just work that way now. And you need to follow that pattern to build a structure and a hierarchy into your design. Slides are fairly easy to read because I did this. Different color, different fonts, different information, but the structure is kind of there, and you can see heading and subheading. So F-shapes eye tracking. You can also see, because these are bulleted, that they're part of a group of bullets. That looks complete. If I had a space and another set of bullets, that would break the completion. And you extra spaces in things that make things seem like they're two different things when they're just a line that has a blank line. Big design flaw. When you're designing rows of buttons that work, make sure that they stay on the same button if they're in the same context. If you go to different lines, you have too many spaces, or when you resize the screen, if you mess up that orientation and that grouping, the gestalt closure of that, it breaks our brains and we think those are two or three different things, and I'm only looking, okay, cancel is the button I know I'm keying in on, but if the button I'm supposed to hit is 2 rows down, I only look at that row, and you can go completely banner blind to something if it looks like it's part of a different section. So indentation sizes, consistent visual vocabulary. I gave a presentation on this at Dreamforce. I keep, let's actually, I can show you. It is always hard. I keep a library of open source icons in my Google Drive that are GPL, that I collect from different websites that give away free, open source, reusable, commercially reusable icons that to me say something. And I use those, and when I'm building an application, if I have a next button, I use the same icon for the next button every time. I constantly, every application, you'll see one of these crystal icons or the crystal icon set, or in my PowerPoint presentations. If this means calendar, make every button, every link to a calendar, use the same button. Be consistent. If you're telling people next, if the next button always says next, don't make it sometimes say next and then sometimes say next page. Nancy Dickinson got promoted to one of the very first VPs of UX for eBay when she gave a presentation to eBay. I think it was in 97-ish, and the page, the next page controls, if you search for something in eBay and you get 30 pages of results, they had 30, 40 different application development teams that did different type of search results. They all used a different type of next page. Some of them had extra dots, some of them had arrows, some of them had icons. And she gave a 45-minute presentation and did it to music, just showing how many absurdly many ways that they were conveying the same information graphically differently and had no consistency. They adopted that. If eBay's doing that, it probably means money. So anyway, this is my visual vocabulary. When something's wrong, I use that icon. If I want to pop that up, if I want to say that to somebody. Sometimes there's a toast message, sometimes there's a little chat icon, sometimes there's an exclamation point. That different way of doing stuff messes with people. Figure out what they're already using and mimic that. I don't put that out there if there's already an error message toast format that somebody's already using. Don't get creative. Be complicit. Be consistent. And then guidepost and information sense. Information sense, a fun one. If you ever give somebody a more than one page of information, or they might be looking at it on a mobile page. So I've got my closure here. If I cut off the page right after consistent visual vocabulary, there's about this much space. There's a couple of pixels of space that if the page breaks right there, you can't tell that there's something to scroll to. Now, if I wanted to be smart and take that into account, I would do Something like that. Well, let's make it a color that's actually readable. Now, if the screen cuts off right here, the fact that I haven't closed this box is information sent. There's a framework that is telling me there's more to scroll down to. Huge deal. Always, if you're presenting people with a lot of information, enclose it to where you have either a guidepost to something that they can orient to, or something that says this continues below, because you never know when that scroll bar is not going to pop up and they're not going to see it, and it'll cut off at one piece of information. Hey, I only got 3 results in my search. What? 500 says 500 at the top. Oh, okay. People miss that. They miss that, and this kind of closure and gives you a hint. Hey, there's a scroll bar over here. Hey, there might be more than one image. Make sure that you're pointing through that. But guideposts, progress bars, hey, I'm this many steps through it. This form has 7 pages. You're on 5. Those help people. I can't tell you how many surveys I've never finished filling out because they just had 1 more page. I just had to answer 5 more questions and then 5 more questions. And I didn't know it was going to end. I wanted to get submit, but I didn't care that bad. So I closed it and didn't fill it out. Telling people there's 5 pages, they can quit at the beginning, or they know that it's just 5 pages and they'll get done. Those kind of signposts, those kind of predictive pieces help people complete projects. So having that chevron, having that pathing. Now, this is one of my favorite tricks that I use, because I spend a lot of time designing applications that I think are perfect. And as long as I'm not the one building them, they usually turn out pretty good. I love color contrast rules. I obey stuff that I've learned from Nielsen Norman. I know how to make a website usable, but I'm a solution architect, which means I've always got a boss, and more times than I can count, I have a boss that has to change something to show their value. Oh, can you just move it up here? Hey, can you make the icon cornflower blue? They always have to put something on it. My wife called it, somebody called it licking the reports. Like if there's a bunch of cookies out and you lick every one, they're all yours. That's it. My little brothers and stuff do that to each other. You know, I can't eat all the cookies all at one time, but I can lick them all really fast so that you don't want to eat them. So they always have to lick the report. If I've chosen a color and a font for an application, it's the right color and the right font. I love feedback. I love opinions. But a lot of times people will tell me to change stuff just so they can be heard changing stuff. I leave a trap for that. There's the saying that I love, wabi sabi is a Japanese thing, and there's I think it's a Navajo tradition to never try to make a perfect Navajo blanket. You always need to leave something undone, because otherwise it's hubris. It's an affront to trying to be perfect, and you shouldn't try to be perfect. You should be really good. Wabi sabi is embracing imperfections. I will leave something very obviously misspelled on a page, or something slightly out of alignment. If somebody has to say something, say it about that. If they're just going to hone in on one mistake and that's their contribution, I leave that there. My feelings don't get hurt because they changed something that I spent hours constructing. I leave that out there. I leave that through all my demos, all the way almost to production. Every time I'm showing it to somebody, I leave a trap out there. Saves me headache. It saves me rewriting things and having to come back whenever it gets proven right. I'm not always right. I'm very cocky, but I'm not always right. But leaving that out there baits people into having something to say. And then, okay, besides that, besides the spelling error, how does it look? Oh, great. And a lot of times people just need to show they're participating. You give them something easy to log into, and your design doesn't get ruined by somebody having, well, let's make it a lighter color. Let's make it italics. No, you don't make things italics. That means this, that implies that. Give them something to participate in, leave something unfinished that needs a response. Hey, what color should this button be? Should we make it the same? Have something prepared so the actual working parts of your design, if you followed all these tenets, if you're a good application designer, this is a great shield that can get you through that. And that's just kind of my fun story on how to make your designs not be interrupted for bad reasons. I got a chuckle out of Nancy Dickinson when I did that, and my life is complete now. So,
That is
but-
something similar, Paul, where I was doing something at a bank and everybody up the chain had to change it from bold to unbold because, like you just said, they had to put their finger on it. So in my last weeks there, I was kind of tired of their game. So I just divided all the numbers by 10. Nobody caught it all the way up to the senior VPs and back down, bold and unbold, but nobody caught the fact that the numbers were all divided by 10.
yeah, it's just because you have an idea doesn't mean it's a good idea. So opinions, snowflakes, they're all unique, just like everybody else. But it said sometimes it helps. If you know that that's what you're dealing with, this can help you. It is a design tactic. It is a developer tactic, and it also helps people feel involved sometimes. And if their involvement is the only thing they find as a problem is the thing you leave for them to find, that's a good solution. It works for me. Like I said, I'm maybe not the best consultant or the best developer, but this works and it satisfies things and it makes a good application. And at least a fun story to tell people. I think I've done this probably 5 or 6 times. It's only I don't stay in organizations very long where I have to do this. If there are people making decisions, it has to be this way because I thought of it. That's probably, I need data-driven design. Where's your user metrics? I'm going from years of science. That's how I design this application. If we're not on the same page for that, I'm usually going someplace else. But can be fun. If you're dealing with that trouble, this is a trick for developers to use. That is all I wanted to relay for this, and we're right at about 8 o'clock, and there's a lot of yawning. So, anybody have any questions or want to talk about any of this?
The page loads slowly, but you don't want to submit and then submit exactly where the next button is and you end up submitting what you do not want. That is also a design flaw that could have had submit something. It's not necessarily an architecture or related to architecture. There's a page that's loading slowly, but even that could use some forethought.
Yeah. So, and so what you're saying, I'm trying to make sure you repeat one more time so
It's
everybody
not
can.
just the application architecture, it's also running into such issues where you could end up submitting a form which you did not want to and have some forethought over there with the user application. That could also help.
Yeah.
What you're saying is the page is not loaded, but you already see a subject button.
Yeah, so it's placed exactly where next is, and you keep hitting next button, and then you keep doing that, like you're frustrated and you keep hitting, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a dark pattern for that to move the submit button around slightly. Keep it where people expect,
right.
but don't let it be to where they can
Right.
just next through everything. They used to do that with EULAs, like when they want people to actually read the entire end user license agreement. They'd swap on every other one where the OK and cancel button was.
Okay.
So it would make if you just kept hitting it without reading what the button was, it would send you back and you'd have to do it again. But until you were paying attention to what the button said, you could accidentally do that. There's a lot of fun dark patterns that you can do also with that come into play for the user experience too. But yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, especially slow loading. There are a couple of websites that they have the websites tuned badly to where you can go to a next page and the web page header and footer render first, and then later the body content renders. So I'm looking at, I hit next and I see footer links. And if it's more than half a second, I assume the internet is broken and I'm going back and stopping it. And if you don't understand that assumption and how that plays into your application, it, yeah, can be a big problem. You got to test it on those low bandwidth things and understand that it's very huge. And it's something we always forget working on our high-speed internet connections. And that's understanding that full user context. You put a bunch of graphics into a page that's used by somebody checking something out on an oil rig, they'll never see the page because that thing will take so long to load on their non-4G connection. You've got to design to that bandwidth. It has nothing to do with your application design. It all is catering to that moment and that particular user and the whole journey of the user. So yeah, absolutely. Anybody else still awake on the call? Have any questions?
Well, I want to say thanks for the content because this is something that's available whether you're a BitHead Apex developer or just a high-level BA, that this is all relevant to everybody.
Yeah, it's how you design for your users is, I think, at least as important as how you build it from a code perspective. Really efficient code that's displayed to the user inefficiently or doesn't cater to their situation, were you held at gunpoint or not, makes a huge difference on your application. And if you're not asking those questions, you're asking to have your code thrown away, your contract canceled, because it doesn't matter if you did exactly what the client told you. If they end up with a product that they won't use, it's your fault. You'll be the one that's held to blame for it, and your customer, your client, your reputation, that's damaged. Asking those extra questions can get you laid off, but it can also get you trusted and put to another client. I said, literally got an entire project and 5 people on it, almost canceled, almost not laid off, but project canceled. But we asked good questions. They put us on a different tough problem. We analyzed that. We did better business analysis. We did feature mapping. We did user cost benefit analysis. You don't usually get that with a developer that just does whatever you tell them to do and is perfectly happy to drive you into a mountain or paint you into a corner. Thinking like that, that's the difference between an architect and just an engineer. Building that for that whole picture is a user experience developer versus just a code writer.
Good point.
Oh, so you're asking about See the Waffle. And why did Paul choose PNG and not JPEG? PNGs support transparency, where JPEGs do not. So GIFs and PNGs are the things that you can have a transparent background, and so it won't show through. This icon for my smiley face is actually a square icon. You can't have round icons. Every image is a square, X pixels by X pixels in a square. But when I put this in front of something else, the PNGs don't show this border here. You can tell that you can put in an attribute of this is a transparent square. So wherever it's rendered, it has that. The waffle is the Salesforce. The waffle menu is what this icon is. There's a bunch of fun insider code words for things inside of user experience. Where's that waffle icon? This is the waffle. This is the waffle icon. So this 3x3, it usually marks a flyout window. There's another one that is the 3 dots in a row that you click on. That is called the snowman icon. It's also called the kebab icon. And then there's the ellipsis is the ones that's sideways. My favorite, I don't have any website pictures. What's that? The hamburger menu, waffle and hamburger
Yes.
menu are also interchanged.
Yes.
That's a lousy
Okay.
hamburger. I call that the
Thank you.
pancake snack.
This right here, there's always something like your username, your login up here, always in the top right-hand corner. In design world, that's called the eyebrow. When you want to put
Okay,
another
thank you.
icon in the eyebrow, put a link in the eyebrow. That's a big deal. That's special space. And that's one of the words they use for that. So there's, global navigation, top nav, tabs, but eyebrow just makes me giggle because there's only one. It's only on the right side, and that's the eyebrow.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, if anybody has any questions, please let me know now. Otherwise, I'm sure half of you are mostly asleep already. That's what I do. I get paid no money to bore a lot of people. But I hope you got something out of it. like I said, it's not developer-y, but it's heuristics around doing development better. I can't teach you how to code, but I can teach you how to make your code more efficient with this. So. All
Very
right.
relevant.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Paul, I think this might be good for my business analysis group as well, if you want to do this kind of a presentation there, because this
Sure.
is something we've not seen.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
All right.
Hey, glad you liked it. Thanks all. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye, Paul.
Bye.